Foreign Affairs Committee and member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman McCaul, first of all, what's your reaction to a White House and its spokesperson not been read in on something as critical as this?
Yeah, that's troubling. We get the classified briefings. I do. I can't get into that date specific.
Sure.
Although there has been reporting about the 16th being a potential date for invasion. We thought after the Olympics, after the 20th would be more likely. But I think more importantly, we're seeing a disinformation campaign being played out by Putin and the Russians, saying they're moving troops away from the border, when in fact the UN Secretary General said that's not happening. And at the same time, very importantly, Harris, is that the Duma, which is their parliament or Congress, passed a resolution to make the Donbass region, which is the eastern part of Ukraine, that's where the Russian separatists are, to declare them as independent states. This would set up what we call a false flag operation, where they could argue Ukrainians are invading independent states, therefore triggering the pretext for war for Russia to invade Ukraine.
That is very interesting. And when we say that we have video evidence that they're not pulling back troops, I mean, what is our intelligence like? I know that NATO nations surround Ukraine. I mean, that brings in our interest because we're obligated as a fellow member of NATO to be with them and to help protect them. But what can they help us see?
Well, I don't want to get into classified. We can see a lot and pretty much everything. So we know when they're lying to us and when they're not. This is, again, a disinformation campaign. They're not being genuine. And therefore, I don't think these diplomatic talks are genuine either. They've been building up since last March with zero deterrence from the Biden administration. Now you have 130,000 troops, artillery, planes, joint exercises in Belarus. It's a matter of time. I think the noose is tightening on Ukraine, unfortunately. We are there to defend NATO countries. We will not put troops in Ukraine.
All right. Back in 2018, I want to jog our memories together. Joe Biden dismissed Russia's military capabilities. Here it is.
Look at the state of Russia now. They're in enormous decline. They're, by any definition, these guys are on a toboggan run. The question is when the run ends. You know, they have a second-rate military power. But in terms of their efficacy, their capacity is de minimis compared to ours.
When did they get that toboggan turned around with 130,000 troops? Is he right about any of that?
That toboggan run, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I think, Secretary of Defense Gates was correct. He's been wrong on every foreign policy decision for the last 3 decades. He's wrong on this one. And to underestimate Putin's desire to take over the Ukraine would be the largest invasion since World War II in Europe. It is a very big foreign policy failure. I would argue this all started in Afghanistan, and Putin saw weakness, and then waiving the sanctions on Nord Stream 2 to allow Putin to build his pipeline into Europe. Massive foreign policy mistakes. And now Putin's emboldened. He knows that this is his time to win back the breadbasket of Russia, that being Ukraine, and control the energy in the Black Sea while defeating NATO all at the same time.
Real quickly, what keeps you up at night knowing that President Biden is in the middle of some of this decision making? And you mentioned Afghanistan. Previously, we know from testimony on Capitol Hill, he ignored his generals when they were trying to tell him what it was going to look like if he did his way and not a better course for pulling Americans out and pulling out of Afghanistan at the end of the war.
Well, it reminds me of Chamberlain and Hitler. Weakness invites aggression. He's projecting weakness after Afghanistan. We lost Bagram, our eyes and ears on the ground for Russia, China, Iran. Now President Xi in China he's watching this very closely to see, can I invade Taiwan and get away with this? All the while, our negotiators are in Vienna negotiating with the Ayatollah on an Iranian nuclear bomb. And if that doesn't keep you up at night, I don't know what would.
Appreciate that. Well, look, you've just kind of talked about some threats around the world. Let's look across the world. New data on what Republican senators are calling Biden's leftist social agenda for our United States troops Some 6 million man-hours and more than $1 million spent on woke training across the U.S. military. And topics range from extremism, diversity, equity, inclusion training to climate change education. Not saying that some of that wouldn't be critically important, but we got to stay ready with the military. How does it all fit in? What are your thoughts?
It's dangerous, and I see it on my committee all the time. It's always about, I'm all for diversity and we want to protect the environment, but it's a constant theme. That's all they prioritize, right? I think climate change, when John Kerry goes to China and negotiates with them about green energy and provinces where they commit genocide, it troubles me. When we're on the brink of a potential war, when you got Putin invading Europe, you got Xi invading the South Pacific. To me, these are bigger threats that we need to be prepared for and not spend 6 million man-hours on sort of woke politics. They're not making our defense systems ready, rather weaker. And I think that's the whole theme of this administration.
I appreciate your time and expertise. And as this goes forward, it will be, just ever so curious, I would imagine, with the world perched to see what the President of the United States does next. Because it has seemed, Congressman McCaul, it has seemed as though Russia has been in the driver's seat. We'll see. Thank 100%. You, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.